types this year, and we've really got an honor to have Dr. Fixsen here. If you haven't gone and met with him individually, I suggest it, highly suggest it, but this is an opportunity for you to get introduced to him in the program and medical school admissions and ask questions. So he'll give his portion of the talk and then save some time at the end for questions. We're going to be videotaping this as well. So if you want to see this afterwards, I'll let people know as well that it was videotaped. That way they can catch it afterwards. So why don't we give a big round of applause for Dr. Fixsen.
I'd like to thank Tex for actually arranging all of this. I'm not a big fan of this, but I can't move it, so I'm stuck behind it. I've been the director of the Health Careers Program for 22 years. Seems like longer sometimes, but it's a great opportunity to meet incredible students over year after year after year, and it keeps me very engaged and excited about coming in every day. I only recognize a few faces, so how many people are actually in the Health Careers Program? I haven't met you, but okay. You don't have to be in the program, obviously. Of course, this year, as you know, ours is open to all. Primarily, I think we're going to talk about medical school admissions, I think, tonight, and certainly this will be very question-oriented, but I want to give some basic information first. How many of you are planning to apply to medical school at all? Someone here is thinking about medical school. Okay. And how many are looking to apply in 2014? Anyone here for 2015 applications? Some of you as well. Okay. I have some information that just came in from AAMC. I'll put it over here. They're pads, so there's lots of copies of them. It's the MCAT schedule for the next cycle. And excitingly, they actually put 3 dates in June for the first time. 6 steps to prepare for the MCAT, and financial assistance for applying, which you may learn is extremely expensive. But I'll just put this over here, put it on the table there, and you can just peel it off. And if for some reason we run out, I do have PDFs of the same documents, which I'm happy to send out, and I probably will to the group at some point. So applying to medical school, generally at this point, is just scary. It is true that there are still far more people interested in applying to medical school than there are places to put those people. And that means about 2/3 of applicants are not successful. And that's a tough thing to hear. And you look around the room and say, what does that mean for me? The process, of course, is not just a lottery. It's not just pulling names out of a hat and 35% of the applicants get in and 65 do not. It's clearly a competition. And in making it a competition, sometimes you kind of lose sight of what the goal is. You just kind of get caught up in the competition. I think it's really important sometimes to step back and say, why am I doing this? And how am I proving it to myself? Which ultimately is required to prove it to medical schools. So there are some steps and hoops that you're going to have to jump through. Clearly we can focus, and we do, on the numbers. We talk about GPAs, talk about MCAT scores. And we can't get away from that, because ultimately, when they have so many applicants to review, they use those for equalizing purposes. They use those for screening purposes. An individual medical school may have 120, 150, even 200 seats, but they're getting 10, 13, 15,000 applications for those seats. Now, clearly those applications are from people applying to many schools. It's not each school gets an individual group of 10,000, but it's 10,000 applying to all the schools sometimes. But the point is that they're not capable of really reviewing each applicant for the potential. They are looking at those that have proven it, the potential, and are screening amongst those for who they think will make the best positions. And that's why we do, at this point, tend to overly focus on the numbers, because without them, it doesn't really matter what else you're doing sometimes. And that can be very frustrating. The future may be different. There is a big change, probably all heard about it. Some of you will be affected by this greatly, which in 2015 is going to be a big difference in terms of what the MCAT exam looks like. It's going to be a big difference in how schools are assessing what your coursework looks like and what those requirements of coursework might look like. But for now, as many of you, most of you, are in the 2014 cycle, we can just focus on that and then adjust where necessary going forward. So coursework, we all know what that is. It's the core sciences, right? We all have to take those year of Gen Chem and physics and bio and orgo, and we're all supposed to have labs. Schools are increasingly looking for biochemistry. There are 28 schools currently that have it on the list, and in fact, it will be tested on the new MCAT going forward. So after January 2015, biochemistry is a de facto requirement. Stats becomes a de facto requirement, but now it's a requirement at some schools. Math is a very sort of moving target. Schools have very different ways of assessing or requiring math. Many schools don't even list it. They don't even have a math requirement, assuming that if you got through physics, for example, that you probably have enough math skills. But others still list calculus as a requirement. There are none left that require a year of calculus, except for some specialty programs like Harvard HST, which is sort of a science-oriented MIT-Harvard kind of arrangement. And that still does require a year of calculus, but I don't know any other school that does at this point. The application itself will look at your grades by year. So they'll actually tear it all apart and look at your grades freshman through senior. Post-bac, which I'm assuming you all are, maybe some of you are actually undergrad still, but post-bac is a separate year. And whether it's 1 or 2 or 3, it's still kind of year 5. And then graduate work is separate yet again. And then between all of those different parsing outs, they also look at grades, science versus non-science. And while it was true in the past that science GPAs were counted somehow meant more, I guess, in the process, it's no longer true. They're looking for very well-rounded applicants. And if you actually look at the data of matriculants, that is those people who got accepted and went to a school, the average GPAs are frightening. They're 3.7, they're 3.8, and they all look the same. It doesn't look like, well, I heard some schools are easier than others, and if you look at the numbers, you don't really see that. You can't sense that. MCATs currently are broken into 3 sections: verbal reasoning, biological sciences, and physical sciences. And often it's just reported now as an aggregate number. You talk about a 32 MCAT score. Well, it's broken into 3 separate numbers from 1 to 15 in those 3 categories. So the highest MCAT scores are 45. There is no magic MCAT score that guarantees success. We've had our own applicant with a 45 not get into medical school 1 year, because it's not the only thing they're looking at. You can have a perfect MCAT score, but if you don't have what else they're looking for, it doesn't get you in. But there is a low MCAT score which will likely keep you out. And that's generally the way we focus and look about numbers. It's not that if you're a 4.0 with a 45, you're a better applicant than someone else with lower numbers, because that other applicant may have much more to offer and may have done much more in their life. But there are numbers that can keep you out. And it's not a perfect system, but certainly, in my opinion, when the science GPA is below 3.5, you're going to struggle. When your MCAT scores are below 30 aggregate, you're going to struggle. But even there, that's kind of not all of it, because generally any 7 MCAT score in a section is lethal. You don't get looked at with a 7. You can still have, 7, 15, 15, and say I have a 37, but that 7 is still going to come back to haunt you. So you got to be a little bit cautious about what you hear. How many people have been on studentsdoctors.net? When I first started, I think it was actually honorable and honest and correct. And I think at this point it's 90% not. It's sort of like Yelp reviews. They just said 50% of those are made up and fake. And I don't think that anybody's making up necessarily posts to studentsdoctors.net, but I think they have a myopic view of what they did and thinking that that relates to all. It's very difficult to parse out correct information, meaningful information on any of these online. And because the process has gotten so crazed with sort of the easy access to misinformation, you're finding now a growth of professional sort of guides that will charge you thousands of dollars to tell you the secrets of application. There are no secrets of application. It's all there. It's nothing hiding. But it does require a lot of effort on your part. Now, again, we can focus on the numbers and talk about the numbers, and that is one part of the equation. The part that gets difficult is when you have 50 applicants that all have the right numbers and all have the right grades and GPAs and everything is there, and they have room for 2 of them or 1 of them. How then do they go in and try to figure out who deserves that 1 seat? And that really gets down to the individual. The skill sets that you bring, the experiences you've had, the letters of recommendation, the story. So there is a story that's part of your application. We call, some part of it's the personal statement. So AMCAS has a certain number of characters that you get to type in, spaces included, punctuation included. So you can't make the font small. It's just really how many times you click the keyboard. And it's literally a blank space that says personal statement. And now there are books written on how to write a personal statement. There's people trying to sell you a good personal statement. There is no correct personal statement because it's got to be your story. That's the correct personal statement. It has to be done well. It should be telling as to why medicine, why you. But there's no other guidelines really there for that. There's no secret to writing a good personal statement. There are services on campus that can help you write. That's available to you as part of being here. You don't have to pay someone to edit your story. And in fact,